Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. I'm Dr. Dawson, and today we are going to talk about what is the best, absolute best rabbit pellet that you can get for your bunny. And I do want to start this video out by saying that I'm not sponsored by any of these companies that I'm maybe going to talk about. I also am not saying that I know everything about every single rabbit food on the market. These are just a few of the ones that I've seen and looked through, and I just wanted to talk about some of those things. The other thing is this is going to be a lot of generalization. So this is going to be talking about multiple different qualities of food rather than specific brands of food, although the specific brands of food may come up a little bit as we get towards the end. Now, the other thing I wanted to mention is that if you're watching this video, most likely you are not subscribed to my channel. About 92% of my viewership is from people who aren't subscribed to my channel. And so if you guys wouldn't mind, hit that subscribe button, especially if you're a returning viewer and you've come to see another one of my videos, would help me out quite a bit. Thank you guys for that. Sorry for the shameless YouTube plug, but a guy's gotta put food on his plate somehow. For those of you who are new to this channel, I am a mixed animal veterinarian and I see all sorts of species. I see dogs, cats, cows, horses if I have to, rabbits, birds, you name it, I've probably seen something similar to it. So I see quite a few different species. I'm not just a small animal vet, I'm not just a large animal vet, and no, I don't just work on rabbits, but rabbits are one of the things that I'm passionate about because I do like my own rabbits, and it's been a little bit of a journey, and I had several experiences that maybe I'll talk about at a different time with my own rabbits, of why I wanted to learn more about them and become more competent with myself in practice. So that's a little bit about who I am if you guys are new to the channel. So let's get started with the topic at hand. So talking about rabbit pellets, the first couple things I'm going to talk about are general rabbit dietary considerations, and some of this is going to be a review of a few of my other videos that I'll point out as we go along. So what is a rabbit pellet, and a little bit about the history. So basically a rabbit pellet is a compressed type of food for rabbits, typically that is going to contain some form of a bulking agent, a binder, a little bit of fiber, some protein, and some vitamins and minerals. In the past, and some companies specifically have been told their rabbit owners that are buying their product that no, your rabbit does not need to eat hay, that this pellet contains everything that they need and they don't need to continue to eat hay if they don't want to. But that's not true at all. So with a few exceptions, the bulk of any rabbit's diet should consist of hay. Alfalfa more for younger rabbits, but as a rabbit ages, typically an adult rabbit should basically only need hay and or fresh fruits and vegetables. So if you want to go and check out a video about the best type of hay for rabbits and when to use what kind, you can go check that video out up here. And if you want to learn a little bit about the best fruits and vegetables for rabbits, go ahead and check this video out here. And so I go over those kinds of things as well. So the whole purpose of a rabbit pellet should actually, instead of being their main dietary consideration, should be basically a supplement or a small treat. So your rabbit should not be getting a ton of pellets, and they don't need it. We're gonna go a little bit into rabbit digestion here in a few minutes because it's important to understand in order to get an idea of what to look for in a rabbit pellet. So some pellets are probably necessary for most rabbits in the US, at least, to live, because they're not going to get a high enough quantity of the vitamins and minerals that they need through fresh fruits and vegetables, or especially just hay by itself. So giving some pellets is a good thing. Now, you're going through the store and you see this pellet and you see this pellet. Which pellet are you going to buy for your rabbit and why? That is the question we're going to answer in today's video. So if I'm walking through, this one over here looks amazing. Look at all the color, look at the different shapes and sizes and seeds and nuts. Rabbits ought to like that stuff, right? Yes, they do, but it's also not good for them. So I would actually choose this pellet over here. And I don't know what brand this is, I don't know what pellet it is, but this is typically the kind of pellet that I'm going to look for. So typically green, you can see some sort of hay structures in it. as well as it's not just nuts and fruits and seeds, etc. So why are nuts, seeds, fruit bad for your rabbit, especially in these high quantities? Well, a rabbit is a very strict herbivore. Now, you could say, well, those things are for herbivores, and yeah, sort of. But your rabbit is very well adapted to eating high fiber foods. And it does this in a variety of ways, but primarily it does this by absorbing a small amount of nutrients, because most high fiber things, such as hay, don't contain a ton of energy in them. And they absorb a small amount out of a large amount of food. So they eat a ton of hay, and they absorb a small amount of food out of that. And their GI tract is able to move those large particles through very, very quickly and very efficiently. And unlike a lot of other species, like a lot of the carnivores, so dogs, cats, even thinking of some of the omnivores like people or other species, their GI tracts move relatively slowly compared to a rabbit. And by that, I mean they don't need to continually be eating like a rabbit does. A rabbit should almost always have food in front of them with very few exceptions, and that type of food should be some sort of fiber so that they continue to have good GI tract movement, as that can avoid some problems a little bit later in life. So why are these mixes so bad then? Well, these mixes contain a lot of high protein and high energy content foods. And so if a rabbit is eating these foods, one, they're going to be low in fiber, so they're not going to wear down their teeth that are always growing nearly as well. They also contain a lot of simple carbohydrates, and simple carbohydrates are not good for rabbits because they're easily broken down by the bacteria that are in the GI tract, and this can produce gas and therefore GI stasis. And if you want to learn about GI stasis, here's a video up here going over that. So these foods tend to be broken down into a lot smaller pieces than, say, hay does when a rabbit eats it. And so it's going to actually move through the GI tract much slower than those large hay particles are going to. And that's going to be a disadvantage because you're having a higher risk of GI stasis. As I said, if a rabbit gets any sort of gas, any sort of slowing down of the GI tract, that is a very bad thing for their health. The other thing to consider is that a lot of these things such as seeds, nuts, fruits are also going to have a higher chance of your rabbit becoming obese and actually becoming much more obese than they should be, especially if they're spayed or neutered, because that will decrease their metabolism. So although these foods tend to look good to our eye because a lot of times they have a lot of coloring agents, they have a lot of colorful fruit, they look like, ooh, healthy nuts, they're not good for your bunnies, and I don't recommend them almost ever. What is in the pellet? So typically a rabbit pellet is going to be made up of a few different parts. The first one is going to usually be some sort of ground or slightly broken down hay. And this is going to be the first ingredient in most of your pellets. If it's not the first ingredient of some sort of hay, don't even look at it on the shelf. They typically also are going to have some sort of bulking agent, and a lot of times this is going to be like soybean wheat hulls. And this is almost non-digestible fiber, and it's going to just pass right through your bunny, and it's not going to do much. There's also going to be some sort of protein, and a lot of times this is going to be something like soybean meal, or it could also be some sort of like flaxseed meal, or some sort of seed meal of some kind. And this is typically fine. There's nothing wrong with that, and it's a good source of protein, especially in younger rabbits. Now, the hay part, which is going to be your first ingredient on the back of the bag, should probably be Timothy in most cases. A lot of them do have alfalfa options, but I would keep that basically only for your baby rabbits and younger rabbits. Now, the other part that is probably the most important part of all of the pellets, is for what I'm looking for as a veterinarian, is going to be the vitamins and minerals. So the vitamins and minerals that I would look for are going to be things like vitamin A, vitamin Bs, and those can have different names on the back. They aren't always listed just as vitamin B. Niacin, there's folic acid, there's a whole bunch of them. There's 12 B vitamins. You can look them up if you want to. Vitamin E is also another very important one that I would recommend looking for. Zinc, manganese. There's a whole bunch of little micronutrients that aren't really present in normal hay and are present in very low quantities, even in fresh fruits and vegetables. So these are the things that you're going to really be feeding the pellet for. You're not feeding it for the hay. You're not feeding it for the protein. You're feeding it for the vitamins and minerals that it contains. So one other thing that I wanted to mention is that you want to look for a pellet that's higher in fiber. So on the back, usually there's like a crude fiber minimum and maximum, and you want something near or above 25% fiber. And this is just because it's going to be better for your rabbit's GI tract, meaning that it's not going to be digested as easily, which is a good thing in rabbits, and it's going to keep it moving, decrease your risk of GI stasis, and it's just a much healthier option than going for something that's super low in fiber and super high in protein. You guys are probably all wondering at this point, what brand of food do I use for my rabbits? If you've watched my other videos, you probably already know the answer, and the answer is Oxbow. Like I said, I'm not sponsored by them. I don't work with them. I don't think I've ever even had contact with a rep from them. But I've just been very impressed with their food, and I'm very impressed with the vitamins and minerals that are in it. So if you're able to get an Oxbow food, this is a good option. If you're not, that's fine. The two that I like from Oxbow, there's a third that I'm not as much of a fan of, but two that I do like are the Oxbow Essentials and the Oxbow Garden Select. So one other thing that I wanted to quick mention is, so there's a couple companies out there that are kind of pushing that your rabbit almost doesn't need to eat hay if they eat their pellets. And I don't really agree with this at all. So the companies that I'm talking about typically are going to have more of a very coarsely ground hay that's in their pellet. They're going to still be compressed. They're still going to have a lot of the same things as everything else, maybe use a different filler. But I don't really like these. And the reason that I don't like these is not because they're a bad product necessarily, but because they're bad marketing. So they're trying to get you to switch your rabbit over to free feeding these pellets. And although they're not horrible, I would not free feed my rabbits on these because they're not going to get a lot of the benefits from the very large pieces of hay that they're going to get from eating a primarily hay diet. So they're not going to get the same grinding on their teeth, so you're going to have more risk of dental problems. You're going to have a lot more protein mixed in with a lot of these. And even though they're lower in protein than some of them like Oxbow, they're still pretty high in protein compared to a mostly hay diet. And so your risk of obesity drastically increases with these pellets if you're free feeding them. So while I was doing my research for this video, one other company that came up that looks very good, I've not used their product, so I haven't used it, but at least the ingredient list and their guaranteed analysis looks very good, is a brand that I've never heard of before, but it's called Small Pet Select Rabbit Food, and I'll leave a link to an Amazon link down below for this one. Another company that is pretty good with their products and looks like they put a good amount of quality in, again, I've never used it, so I don't have a lot of input directly, is Sherwood. And this is one of the companies that I just would be careful of their marketing, and I would feed their pellets at a limited quantity. I would not feed them to a high quantity like they probably recommend in a lot of their marketing materials. Thank you guys so much for watching the video. We are all done talking about rabbit pellets, and if you enjoyed it, make sure you guys subscribe for more content like this, and leave a like and a comment down below to help get this video out to more people. If you have rabbit pages that you think maybe should see this, especially on Facebook or whatever, feel free to share this video. I would love if you guys would share it and give me any feedback that you have. Do you have a favorite rabbit food? Because if you do, leave it down in the comments and I'll take a look at it and see what I think. Maybe I'll do a specific review of like the top 10 rabbit foods at some point. Have a great rest of your day, guys, and we will see you in the next video.